Good afternoon and welcome to episode 2 of The Life of Someone Extraordinary. My name is Tiyon Simpson. Welcome to my channel, TLSE Vision. I'm really glad that you've decided to join us this afternoon. Now, I am extremely excited to introduce my next guest, my second guest. Her name is Jen Manswell. Jen is from Trinidad and is primarily based in the USA. Her expertise, she spent a number of years in marketing, and right now she runs several businesses. And I'm really grateful that Jen was able to take some time out of her morning in Trinidad. I'm obviously dialing in today from Bulgaria to be able to share more about who she is as an entrepreneur, how her philosophies are built, a little bit more about her businesses, and just genuine kind of entrepreneurial wisdom. So if you're an entrepreneur, a creator, or even a professional person looking to bridge the gap between who you are now and what you believe you could be, my content is for you. If you like the conversation, please drop a like on this video. Leave a comment, leave some feedback. Please let us know what you thought of the conversation, or if you have any questions for Jen. And also, if you want to continue watching content of this kind, if you're enjoying this content, then hit that subscribe button and follow along and be enriched on this journey we can go on together. So I'm really grateful for Jen for coming on and having a chat with me today. Let's dive in now and let's get straight into the conversation. Jen, thank you so much for joining me. It's such a pleasure for you to come and sit down and have a chat with me, and it's been a pleasure getting to know you over the past few days or so.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you so much. Okay, so just for just tell me a little about who you are, what you do, and yeah. So how are you at this point right now? So tell me a little bit about your journey through to becoming an entrepreneur now. Just explain to people watching who is Jen.
Well, if I were to describe myself in one phrase, I would say I am um, a builder of vision, a builder of ideas, and a builder of legacy. And I know that that's quite abstract, but it is a mirror or reflection of sort of how I think and how I approach entrepreneurship or business as a whole. Also, how I approach helping other people, because everything I do has a people component to it in terms of facilitating their efficacy while I grow my own, if that makes sense, right? But it's also oriented around the notion of establishing or building um, projects and executing on tasks, etc., but doing so in a fashion that's sustainable over time. So I build things that last.
Build things that last. Amazing. So obviously you're an entrepreneur now, and I understand that you had obviously a number of years working in corporate, as did I. But tell me a little bit how you started. How did you what was your journey from the start of your career through to corporate through to now? So tell me a little bit about your journey.
Sure thing. I'm going to start all the way back to when I was about 8 years old and I joined my first choral group. Now, I know
Okay.
that doesn't seem to match entirely with Gen Ed corporate, but bear with me as I tell the story.
Right.
It started at 8 years old when I was in my first choral group, and apparently I was really good at singing. And I continued to sing with different choral organizations, found my way to the United States where I did my undergraduate. And guess what? Choral performances is what paid for school. And I toured a significant portion of the US with that choral group while I was matriculating at Benedict College. Then transferred over to Marquette University, where I got my master's in global and multicultural communications. At that point, I transitioned into the corporate world, starting at on the agency side of things from a communications perspective. And I deliberately decided to transfer over to the client side of things, right? So I spent 3 years serving as an agency, multicultural global advertising agency. Then I shifted over to the client side, starting with one major corporation. Realized that I love the client side of things, but the agency side of things prepared me to be able to manage campaigns and programs really well and hold my vendors accountable. I was able to filter down to vendors that were really powerful, and over the course of the rest of my corporate career, stayed with me and helped me grow and deliver several million dollars worth of pipeline into different companies from a demand generation and revenue generation perspective. Now, why does me being an 8-year-old choral classically trained singer impact who I am today? Well, I realized that through my journey, every experience I had a component of communication in it, right? When you are singing, you're not just singing, but you're communicating the depth of feel of the song. And as my performance career grew, I transitioned from choral music to musical theater to directing theater, and I directed a theater company for about 4 years, directed 26 shows, wrote 6 of them. um, I started to learn every facet of physical communication, vocal communication, and then my master's was in multicultural global communication. And I
Okay.
ultimately realized that that merged into the one of my core businesses, which is called Parable Productions, which is built around a notion of telling God stories from a variety of different mediums and angles, right? So Parable is made up of 5 divisions: film, television, digital, publishing, and theater. And I have enough expertise over the course of, since childhood to today, to be able to effectively carry those divisions forward towards the goal of sharing the heart of Christ with people. So when I say that my childhood experience being in a choir from 8 years old till now has informed the vision of Parable, it certainly has.
Yeah. I think to kind of touch a little bit on what you've said, I think the power of communication, um, in order to communicate effective stories, which I think really is the heart of anyone that's in the marketing space, for example. Communication is really the heart of what marketing is, really, because it's kind of like, not to kind of paraphrase previous conversations that we've had, but like the art of communicating a message or a story that we really want the end user to either be influenced by what we're saying or
Mhm.
buy a product from us, for example. So it's almost like when you were kind of explaining that, it's almost like I could kind of join the dots from what you said about singing through to communicating that feeling of song through to taking that into say the corporate world, for example, and then that method of communication and how that can turn into business, essentially, really, because that's kind of really what the heart of business is, really. Really, we're communicating to other people, please buy our stuff or please use us to do something for you. So
Exactly.
absolutely. So yeah, it's an interesting journey, but one that makes total sense. So let's go into Parable Productions a little bit more. So you did mention that really the heart of everything is communicating God's story. So just explain a little bit more as to kind of what that looks like and how do you effectively communicate that through the mediums of what you've created?
Oh, you're asking my favorite question. Oh my goodness. When I describe the goals of Parable Productions or who we are, I really focus in on the fact that we either leverage the Bible because it's chock full of every story imaginable, including the parables that Jesus told, um, or articulating the stories of you and I, right? Because in order for people to understand God's heart, you really have to understand it from your point of view. And that's why Jesus used parables to begin with. His whole approach in communication, he was a master communicator, and his whole approach in communication was to make the message relevant to the audience that he was speaking to. And this is why at the end of every message or sermon he delivered, thousands of people decided to follow him. Now, it didn't hurt that he was the son of God, right?
Obviously.
Even though I'm the daughter of God, I don't hold a candle to Jesus. However, the point is his framing of story fascinated me, and by extension, the way the Bible is written fascinates me as well. Now we're in an age where uh, folks have fundamentally leaned on "I feel, therefore I am," and or we are in an age of I call it the religion of self, right? If this is my perspective, then that's what I'm going to go with. And so a lot of people don't realize that the Bible has the answers to every question you have, and it is relevant to every issue that's happening today. It hasn't become irrelevant because we're in a different era and in a different age. And so rather than saying, hey, we need the Bible, my approach is, hey, let me tell you a story. And to do so in a fashion that allows the concept of the story to sit in the hearts of folks. And I make the room for them to simply find their own conclusion. At the end of the day, what God wants of us is for us to make the decision to walk with Him, right? So there's no pressure, no stress, just the framing of a story in a fashion that's so relevant to you that you want to at least consider having a conversation with God
Yeah.
or building a relationship with Him. Because when you strip away the pomp and the circumstance of religion, when you strip away the formulaic processes, every point of view that every theologian has or every person or scholar has, you end up with the unvarnished truth that God just wants to be intimate with his creation again. That's it. He just wants us to be close again. And if we are close, then we discover who we are in him. And we find ourselves living that abundant life that Jesus died that we might live. And I say might, I underline the word might because I have a feeling that Jesus knew that some of us wouldn't choose the path. Might implies that we have a choice to make. God does not force himself on us. And so my desire, storytelling that we do, from the books to the films to the television shows to the theatrical productions to the digital content that we're going to be cultivating soon, is to plant those seeds and let them germinate and allow you to come to discover it for yourself. And if you make the decision, that it comes authentically from your heart.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And having such a strong, what I'm looking for is unshakable ethos when you are creating something like this. 'Cause obviously, before the business, before obviously everything else that comes with it, if the spiritual foundation when you're have a mission like this isn't firm, then how will your audience or the people that you're going to reach going to react to that? So I think having such a strong grounding and such a strong brand mission behind what you're doing, I think is really, really important. Um, and you actually, whilst you're talking, you've actually kind of given me another question, so to speak, and it's one that I think a lot of people that have businesses or projects that are stemmed in Christian ethos, they struggle with a little bit, and that is the argument between, you know, are we doing this for the purpose of evangelism or for spreading the message of Christianity, or is this a business? And primarily, the whole purpose of a business, as we've just spoken about, is really to make money. We're providing a service, right? So,
Right.
how would you answer that question? So, in terms of how you see, obviously, the whole, the idea of powerful, obviously, the idea of powerful productions is of course to spread the message of Christianity, but also as well, it needs to be a revenue generator for you. So,
Yes.
in your opinion, Jen, how do those two worlds collide, and how do you go forward, being able to fulfill both without compromising on, how do I call it? Morality? Not morality. Yeah, morality to an extent. How do you feel good about making money and, you know, spreading the word of God at the same time?
Well, there are two perspectives I'm thinking of in the way I'm going to answer this question. The first is I run away from human rules, right? Concept of making money is a bad thing in the body of Christ is a human rule. There's a lie that's been told to the body of Christ that says that we have to be pious.
Yeah.
Bow down. We have to humble ourselves. And the thing is people think humility is subordination, but humility is simply the acceptance or an understanding that God's word and God's posture on things is superior to ours. The minute we decide to exalt ourselves above the knowledge of God, that's when we have a problem, right? But if we put the Father first in all things and in all our ways acknowledge Him, we'll be just fine. Yeah. This is why I remember thinking the other day, man, it's kind of tough to reconcile this whole notion of God, I humbly come before you, but he says, but come boldly, right? So which is it? Do we come humbly or do we come boldly? Well, we can come boldly in humility.
Mm.
And in humility means I put you first, God. I might have some ideas about what I'm talking to you about, but I want your ideas. I want your perspective. I want you to lead, right? And the reason I'm bringing that concept up is because, human Christianity has gotten to a point where it struggles with its identity as children of God, right? We're God's kids. And all over the Bible, he talks about how he blesses and delivers abundance to us. He makes available resource after resource after resource after resource after resource. I mean, Solomon was insanely wealthy. Insanely. I was reading the Proverbs 31 woman and I realized, wait a minute now, she is an entrepreneur, the highest level of entrepreneurship. She may have been a wife, but a wife is not supposed to be subordinate in a marital circumstance. She just has her role, just as the husband has her role, right? And in the case of the description of the Proverbs 31 woman, she was a boss entrepreneur, right? She was a businesswoman to the highest degree. So when I say I run away from human roles, I mean remodel what I build, because the parable is not the only business I build.
We'll touch on that a bit later.
Yes. When I model what I build, I model it after what the Bible says, right? That He will supply all of my needs according to His riches and glory, that He will, etc., etc. Um, so I have there may be the perception that I'm quote unquote using the Bible to make money, and the the way I respond to that is my father makes that money available to me. The only time that that's a problem is when the love of money becomes an issue for me or for anyone else that works within the organization. I will pursue the resources I need. I will pursue the finances I need to proliferate the word of God on the earth. And I will encourage people to hold me accountable to if I've shifted from the pursuit of money for purpose versus the love of money, which is the root of all evil. So I see zero issue with any ministry or any organization building entrepreneurship or a business that is grounded and founded in the Word of God. As a matter of fact, if more corporations were founded on biblical principle, we wouldn't have financial mayhem that we have all over the world. We wouldn't have the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer. We wouldn't have as the strife and the drama and the upheaval that we have because our motives behind building within the body of Christ is about the advancement of the kingdom of God and not about the self aggrandizement that happens within businesses today. Hopefully that answers your question.
That's an ex superb answer. Thank you so much. Brilliant. Let's move on a little bit to some of the other work that you do. So you did mention that you're not the Powerball Productions is obviously something that you obviously care very deeply about, and there's obviously a really, really strong mission behind it. But tell me about some of your other projects. What other businesses have you built?
Well, let's talk about Mieileen Consulting. I like to tell the story of why it's called Mieileen. My mom's name is Eileen, and I just put my in front of it because, as far as I'm concerned, I own her. But Mieileen Consulting is a organization that is founded in the concept of helping businesses systemize their revenue generation and systemize it from a marketing perspective. So it has been 20 years this year actually that I've been in the world of marketing, and I advanced my career pretty far along, and was quite successful in not just actively promoting organizations, but doing so in a fashion that engendered people to purchase, and have collected the data that says that um, I have identified over $110 million in potential revenue for different companies, right? What that means is, as we marketed, as I worked with I call signature partners, right? I have a collection of Mieileen signature partners. And as I've worked with them to execute on the strategic ideas that I formulated, what we ended up doing was encouraging people to say, "Hey, I want to purchase. This is the project I'm looking for." And we estimated the value of every project, right? And as I did that consistently, I was able to say, "Hey, this is the amount of revenue that I've given to the company that they could potentially close." Some of it they did, some of it they didn't. But the point is I was able to find it. Now there is the discipline of demand generation, but what I realized is that I wasn't just focused my career, I wasn't just focused on generating demand. I was also focused on putting the additional steps in place, because it used to bother me that I would deliver that demand and sales wouldn't close on it, or there wasn't follow-up with the customer, et cetera, et cetera. It just used to rattle my cages because I'm a hunter. I'm hunting, right? I'm hunting for opportunities for the company. I don't want it
Like any good entrepreneur, yeah.
exactly. I don't want it to fall through the cracks. So I started building these steps, these process steps, and certain vice presidents in certain companies, paid attention to me, and they supported my efforts towards building these process steps that people can follow outside of the discipline of marketing. Recently, I decided to do. There was a career shift in my life, and when I sat back and I thought about what I had been doing for the past now 20 years, I realized, wait a minute, I've been architecting a repeatable, predictable, and scalable system that people could rely on and measure, right? I was creating not just the marketing discipline, right, along with these partners that are now part of Mieileen Consulting, but I was also bridging the gap between we've captured the demand, now let's make turn the demand to money. And I was doing so in a consistent way to the point where I could predict what was going to happen next because there was enough data to be able to do so. And as I sat back with it and I really thought deeply about it, I realized, wait a minute, I'm a revenue architect. I've been creating these systems, I've been building them, I've been looking at different modes of bringing bringing opportunities into the house. I've been fine-tuning different cross-functional teams to plug into the system, and making it all sing and making it all work. As I said before, I'm a builder, right? So I'd sit back and I'd look at the functioning of the business within the organization, because each organization had different businesses, right? So I'd sit back and look at the business and go, hey, we can be doing this differently and this differently and this differently. And the customers will come running to us because we've made this improvement or this adjustment, et cetera, et cetera. So I realized I was architecting, and I never considered myself an architect before, but these are the structures I started building. So my lean consulting is a revenue architecture business. That's what I'm calling it. And is that what I would do is I would go into an organization, I would look at their business operations, I would better understand how they generate revenue, what are their revenue paths, what are their processes, and I would provide recommendations for how those processes can be improved so as to find new money and optimize the generation of the existing money that they're getting, right? And then once I'm done, I retain the services of my signature partners who would then execute. These are people who I've worked with for as much as 15 years, who have all worked in step with me to generate that 10 million in pipeline that I talked about earlier.
Mhm, mhm.
Every one of them can tell a story of how they worked alongside me to make that happen. So I have had no issues in bringing them along for the ride. So this is the foundation of Mieileen Consulting.
Fantastic. I mean, revenue architecture is what I'd like to think is quite a creative name for what you do. It's not necessarily a common thing that a lot of people would know in business. So, it's one of those things where you take certain skill sets, say from careers that you've had, careers that we've had, and we kind of just put it all together. And there's not really anything wrong with kind of creating something new, as long as it works. And I think certainly I would imagine for most of your clients, they'd want to see, like, say, if you're building a house, for example, they'd want to see the bigger picture. They want to see what the blueprint of what their business could look like. Where is the money going to come in from? Where there's going to be potential, say, leakages, or where they could be losing money, for example.
Right.
So it's quite creative. And how long has Mining been operational?
I started Mieileen in 2024, and it's because a friend of mine called me and went, "Jen, we need help." And I said, "Huh, okay, let me figure out how I was gonna help you." And the thing is I was only going to concentrate on this one client and help them figure out how to optimize their revenue. Um, and then things just unfolded from there.
There's just went from
Just
there.
started unfolding from there, yeah.
So let's get into the whole world of revenue architecture just a little bit more. Let's break down a little bit more as to what revenue architecture looks like for a client. So obviously, you don't have to name drop anybody. You don't have to mention any companies or anything like that. But could you give me like a very very brief case study on what revenue architecture looks like? So what was, say, for example, what was broken for a client, what you diagnosed as the correct solution, and what shifted. Could you give me like a very brief kind of case study as to how Mieileen Consulting works?
Sure. So the fundamental result that you get from going through the revenue architecting process is scalable, repeatable, and predictable revenue. And many companies do not successfully do any of the three, particularly the predictability part of it, right? And when I say that, I mean there's always a core way to make money, right? And I'm never going to say that the company is not making money. However, to your point, there are always leakages, there are always broken systems, and yet there's pressure to do more, grow more, do more with less, etc., etc. So I'll give a few examples. One of the very simplest ones was there was a client of ours of whose website was getting amazing traffic, right? People were kept coming to the website, kept coming to the website. And what I was looking at was that they were about 40% of that traffic was filling out a form, asking questions, talking about a project, right? However, nobody was responding to those conversions. Nobody was responding to the requests. So I put a manual system in place just to test it, right? I did not automate anything. I just put a manual system in place. I said, hey, this is your process now. Every time a lead comes in, you send it to customer service or you send it to a salesperson, and then you see what happens, right? And, a week later, check with customer service, check with sales, see what worked. Within 2 months, that customer got a $67,000 order from one lead. Now, if you do a little bit of projected math, you can sit back and say, if they had put that manual system in place a year ago, multiply that by 67,000, and let's say he got one lead a month. You know where I'm going with that financially, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Turns out that over the course of 2 years of having this manual system in place, we were able to identify over $10 million in pipeline, because not every order was 67,000. Some of the orders were like $300, $500, $700. But this was money they were not they this was money that was just coming in naturally. They were making that money in their sleep because all they were doing was responding to a form that needed to be responded to. That's it. And so when I say that I revenue architected for them, I identified the marketing element, which was their website was getting traffic. I created a process in place where sales and customer service would respond, and then we tracked it on the back end. That's a very, very simple process step that shows you how you can go from losing or hemorrhaging dollars to harvesting it in a system that is predictable and potentially scalable. Now, in that particular instance, to scale it means then creating marketing activity that increases the traffic that comes to the site, right? And as that traffic increases, you then have greater chances of closing new business. There would also be the automated step of flipping those to the different appropriate prospects and or increasing loyalty and revenue from, let's say, your distributor base by instead of giving it to the salesperson, giving it to the distributors directly, right? Or, hey, Mr. Distributor, if you, let's say, commit to a higher amount of annual spend with us, we will increase the number of leads we give you because now we have this massive pipeline. So you can start to see then how that could advance into a variety of different revenue stacks built off of one problem solved. There are quite a few others that I could talk about, but hopefully that's the simplest
Yeah.
one that helps you
Yeah.
understand.
No, no, makes yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Thank you so much for explaining so coherently, Jen. It's much appreciated. So moving on from revenue architecture, just for the moment. See, you have another business, I believe, that you have alongside Mieileen and Parable.
I do. I have a little business called Baby Nips. Oh, that's weird, right?
Interesting name.
Nips. What is that? So, storyteller over here. So I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine called me one day. She had just had a baby about 5 weeks ago, and she called me in a panic because the baby was used to breastfeeding, but she needed to get back to work, and she had made the decision that she wanted to transition the baby to the bottle. And she calls me. Don't have kids. Have never been a mom. But she calls me and she goes, "Can you solve my problem?" I'm like, "Okay, let me do some research." So I looked online because I thought, hey, there might be some recommendations and things like that. I went to Facebook and I just asked my mom friends, "Hey, what do you suggest she could do?" Turns out that, like, from the Facebook message, I got like 50 literally different responses. 50 different responses. I said, "Oh my gosh, that's not going to help my friend." I researched online, and just about every set of recommendations were not agnostic, but instead recommendations from companies that were trying to sell something, right? So I just, ultimately we found a solution for her, but it sparked the idea that, hey, parents are probably struggling to figure this out because if I got 50 different responses, there are 50 different parents that had a similar issue and solved it 50 different ways. Sure, that then scales into parents generally have challenges with feeding their kids. So I started on the path of trying to create what I would call a product selector. Um, and as I started working with my business partners, I realized a product selector was not enough. What we needed to build was an ecosystem that allowed parents to solve all of the core major feeding related issues so as to help them nourish their children, right? It's interesting how you give birth, you stay in the hospital for maybe a day or two just to make sure everything's right. If you're lucky, you have a lactation consultant come in to show you how to breastfeed, and then you're kicked out and you're told, go with God. you know? And, as I was thinking through this project, I had a conversation with a dad because I shared it with him, and tears came to his eyes. And the reason that tears came to his eyes was he was saying, Jen, you would not believe how much of a help this would have been for myself and my wife because my wife suffered with postpartum depression and she struggled with feeding our child. And every time our child rejected the bottle or the breast or for whatever reason, that set my wife into a significant mental health spiral. And I had another conversation with another dad, which was really interesting. All the dads in my life had a lot to say about it. He went, I'm watching my wife go through chapped nipples and I just want to fix it, but I can't because I don't know what's out there to fix it. Um, and I had another woman who um, talked about the fact that she had just given birth and she was unfortunately shamed while she was in the hospital because she couldn't produce enough milk. And if
Mm.
she had a tool like this that would give her a solution, maybe she wouldn't have felt as bad as she felt in that moment,
Mm.
etc., etc.,
Et
etc.
cetera, et cetera. Yeah, exactly.
So I decided to build a platform that's AI informed that actually helps parents solve the problem step by step. So you would open the platform, a series of questions would be asked. The platform would diagnose the challenge and then take you through a step by step process because the thought process is that you'd be using it while you're in the middle of the challenge and you don't
Mm.
have time to read an article. You want something to tell you what to do in that moment. Um, and the system is meant to be clinically backed as well. We have several clinicians that are supporting us right now. So we are slowly building. Baby Nips has been around for a little while, but we're slowly building. We're allowing technology to emerge or, sorry, unfold for us. And I anticipate that it'll be in the market soon. And
Mhm.
hopefully, it will be a support and a help to parents as
Excellent.
they enjoy getting to know their kids.
Absolutely. Something I've gone through twice.
Ah, so you
Yeah.
understand.
I
Yeah.
understand, yeah, I understand. So one question I had about baby nips in particular is that, how will baby nips make money? What's the revenue generator for baby nips? Where does the
Subs-
money come from?
it will be subscriptions, yes.
Subscriptions.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
gonna be primarily subscription based. So there will be a freemium model to help
Mhm.
people immediately, but as you go along the path, you'd be encouraged to subscribe, and you'd be able to unlock additional features. And then there's some other white labeling things that we're exploring as well. Can't reveal all the revenue path secrets, of course.
No,
Um,
of course not, of course not.
but by and large, for the consumer, it'll be a subscription-based platform. Platform
Gotcha.
also follows the parent, not just, postpartum, uh, uh, but it follows the parent all the way through the child's age of 5 because
Mhm,
their palates are changing up till that about that age. And
mhm.
so sometimes today they might want a banana as a toddler, and tomorrow they may hate the bananas and
Okay.
burn a banana in infamy. And so how do you navigate that, right? And
Yeah.
it has an environment that allows you to manage a community, and it has interactivity on the back end where you can actually access clinicians who would be able to provide live support. So there's still some building that we're doing, and we decided to slow things down a bit and not try to rush because we have a great idea. We don't
Mhm,
want to necessarily do it fast. We want to do it well so that
mhm,
it can really be impactful for the parents that leverage it. One of the
mhm.
last most fascinating things I ran into is the whole concept of perinatal mental health. And this is a challenge for women, certainly, because of hormonal changes, etc. But it's also a challenge for men, which,
Wow.
I didn't expect to run into 40% of new parents, new male men or fathers falling into depression because of the pressure of being a new parent.
Mhm.
That's a mental health challenge, right? So,
Yeah.
um, one of the focuses that we do have at the point that the platform is launched is that we're going to tend to women, but we are also going to make resources available for men because they are part of the process as well. They tend to be, kind of shoved aside. You didn't birth the baby, so you're not important. But there's an emotional component for them as well, as is evidenced by the fact that I had 5 different father friends,
Mm.
go, I would do this in a heartbeat type
Oh,
deal.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. I think there's a little bit of danger into kind of, this is a completely different subject in and of itself, but one that is obviously worth talking about and also worth unpacking.
Mhm.
I'm of a generation of men now that I would like to say are probably a lot more, how do I put this? More involved with their children than, let's say, our parents were.
Yes.
So for certainly of men of my kind of age, late 30s, early 40s, it's important, it's important to us because obviously the well-being of, our wives, our mothers, and also the kids as well is obviously something that we care about more. So, certainly from a man's perspective on what you're creating, I think it's certainly very much needed. I don't know, I don't think I'll have any more children, but even still, it's one of those where certainly this is something where where a lot more guys are being, are a lot more emotionally intelligent about these kind of things where, something like this could be really, really beneficial for them. So, yeah, I look forward to kind of watching from afar and sort of seeing how Baby Nips kind of grows and develops and then hopefully, a lot of positive testimony and a lot of positive impact that's been made from obviously from having the platform. So that's also really exciting. So in terms of obviously, that's three businesses that you have. How do you find the bandwidth to manage everything? How do you kind of plan your days? Do you allow yourself enough time to work on everything per day, or do you give yourself sort of like blocks of time? How do you run three businesses?
Well, think of it this way. A builder starts with the foundation, right?
Mhm.
And what I am working on now with each of the business is the foundational structure, bit by bit and step by step.
Mhm.
A lot of people would say to me, Jen, you can't do all three well. And I'm finding that I can when I'm
Mhm.
strategic in what I choose to build at the foundation.
Mhm.
One of the things that's very clear about me is that when I build out a strategy, um, I tend not to deviate from that strategy. It keeps me grounded, it keeps me paced, and it keeps me consistent in my ability to accomplish the tasks that I've laid out before me. So it starts with layering out what that strategy is for the things or the elements that I'm going to structure for each business in
Mhm.
every quarter, right? Once those tasks are accomplished, then I add tasks and I add tasks and I add tasks to it. But I'm very, very militant about staying focused on what has been laid out and not allowing myself to be pulled in a multiplicity of directions. That is really critical because we're all human beings building businesses, right? So it is very easy, especially when there's pressure to see those businesses flourish. It is very easy for you to want to go from here to here to here to here to here. It is
Mhm.
very easy for you to be pulled in a myriad of directions because other people have other opinions. However, if you are clear on your foundational on your foundational structure, and you maintain that trajectory, then you are still going to be able to have an impact on all the organizations. And while the tenets of the organizations are certainly different, there's through line in all of them, right? In that, in order for them to all be successful, I've got to be really good at marketing and promotion and things of that nature. So there's some areas of expertise that I have that cut out the fat because I'm able to sort of replicate my approaches to things from one business to another. For example, Mieileen as a revenue architect, I'm using the same principles of revenue architecture in the other businesses, right? Because to your point, that's how revenue grows.
Yeah.
Um, where baby nips is concerned from a clinical perspective, how does clinical helping children clinically inform Parable or Mylene? Well,
Mm.
those clinicians may have insights for storytelling purposes, et cetera, et cetera, et
Mm.
cetera. Or it may be that services from that organization through those clinicians could be provided at the point that a show is being done because we're trying to target a particular topic in the
Mhm.
show itself. So there's relationship that's established across all of the businesses that can help things along as well. And one of the
Mhm.
final things that I'd say here is in order for you to be able to stay steady and stay grounded and remain on your strategic path,
Mhm.
you have to not allow yourself to fall to imposter syndrome. I know just about every single entrepreneur has those moments, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying you don't feel it because Lord knows I feel it every day. What do I know about babies? I don't have any. What do, what do I know about being a parent? What do I know about directing theater? I learned by rote, right? I learned on the job.
Mhm.
I didn't go to school for any of this. Um, but falling to it is different. Feeling it is one thing, but falling to it is different. I'm going to use a reference that the Lord showed me that gave me a really cool insight. You know, that scripture that says, be anxious for nothing. I'm going to stop
Mhm.
right there. That
Mhm.
word be means to exist, right? So that scripture, as the Lord helped me interpret it, was here's how to not exist in anxiety, right? And he gives you the formula.
Yeah.
But he didn't say, and in that moment he also said, but be sure to understand that I'm okay with you feeling it. You're
Mm.
gonna feel it. I just don't want you to exist in it. I just don't want you to sit in it.
Yeah.
And so here's the formula I'm gonna give you. Pray, supplicate, thank me, and I'm gonna give you peace. So you won't be
Mhm.
anxious, right? That's the prescription for anxiety from the
Mhm.
word. So if we take that word be, which means to exist, and we apply it to what I'm talking about, which is you may have imposter syndrome. You may feel like other people know more than you, so you should be listening to the other people. You might feel you, a lack of confidence. Oh my gosh, it's not taking off. What do
Mhm.
I do now? How do I pivot this? Because I must make this happen.
Yeah.
The entrepreneurship is a wild ride of regulating your feelings and saying
Mhm.
it's okay to feel this way, but I have a vision and I have a plan, and the people, the mentors that I have support my plan and have given me enough fine tuning to make sure that my plan goes well. I'm going to
Mm.
stay on that course, right? Um, and so that's how I'm able to move through all three. I'm
Mm.
not I'm not bouncing around. I
Mm.
literally have a structured plan for how I'm executing.
Yeah, amazing. And I suppose another kind of question that kind of popped into my head whilst you were speaking is how important, and let's kind of separate. Well, I know it's difficult for us, obviously, being of the Christian persuasion, we can't separate, our faith from who we are and what we do. But hypothetically speaking, if we had to kind of separate Christianity from business just for one moment, how important is the principle of having faith when you're an entrepreneur, in your opinion? The process of faith, not so much faith in God, if you
Right,
understand the question,
right.
but the principle of what faith is. Can't remember the scripture off the top of my head. Faith is what's hoped for, the hope of things to come. It's in Hebrew somewhere. Sorry, I can't remember where it is, but
Hebrews 11.
yeah, He was one. Sorry. So the principle of the action. Sorry, there you go. That's the word I'm looking for. The action of faith.
Mhm, mhm,
You know, how important is that when you're an entrepreneur? In my personal opinion, it's impossible. It's almost like being an entrepreneur is a constant test of faith. Hence why
mhm.
we see so many businesses fail. So many entrepreneurs kind of lose confidence. But for someone obviously with your experience and with the level of what you're doing, what does the principle of faith look like to you in what you're doing, and how that kind of sees you through and not shake you from your foundation?
I'm gonna say doing the stupid. I'm gonna say here and explain to you that this is perhaps the first time that I've been able to articulate any details, well, fundamental details, and pull them together about the three companies
Mhm,
that I own, right?
mhm,
And I'm sure because I've heard it before. People think I'm nuts. What are you doing? Three
mhm,
companies? And
mhm.
in areas that you don't really necessarily have expertise in, perhaps marketing is the revenue architecting is the one that I do
Yeah.
have more expertise in. Where are your qualifications? Where are your this? Where are you that? Those are the credentials, the qualifications, the expertise. Those are the things that people lean into to say, okay, you probably are going to do well here because you have this, you have a degree, you have this, you have that, you have the third. But some of the most successful business people in the world just decided to do the stupid.
Yeah.
They decided to do what people would sit there and doubt all day long that they could
Mhm.
do. You know, the story of Bill Gates is that he spent 6 months in his mom's basement building windows, took it to IBM, and IBM laughed him out of the room.
Mm.
Look at him now, right? Steve Jobs has a similar story, right?
Mm.
In other people's minds, because they did not have perhaps or catch the vision, if you will,
Mm.
um, these guys were stupid. These guys were wild. They were weird. They were, what are you talking about? That is not how the world is baked or built. That is not, I've actually had people say to me, um, this is not how you publish a book. This is not what the industry does. I said, but
Mm.
I'm not necessarily trying to align fully with the industry. The industry is a wonderful blueprint, but I'm trying to create something else because I feel like there are holes and gaps in the way things are being done. And I just don't want to be subject to it.
Mm.
But in that person's mind, it was stupid. You're
Yeah.
putting yourself at risk. You're doing the thing, right? So for me, faith is being strong enough
Mm.
to withstand the criticisms that come even within yourself
Mhm.
and emanate from yourself
Mm.
so that you can pursue that vision. When I got the
Mm.
vision for parable, it would not let me sleep.
Yeah.
It wouldn't let me sleep. I could not think about it.
Mm.
When I started to unfold revenue architecting, I would be up at 2 in the morning. I have the notes to show you, typing different concepts and ideas and researching and this and that. And that's how you know it's what you're built for. And if you as an individual, because we could talk about business principles and frameworks, but let's just
Mm.
talk about being a human trying to do a seemingly superhuman thing, trying to do the stupid, trying to do the thing that most people will shrug their shoulders at you for.
Mhm.
We might be separating Christianity a little bit, but I can't help but talk about Noah and the
No,
falcon.
bring it back. Bring it back. The question was separated. No, please,
Just
please, please bring it
right.
back. Please bring it back.
I talked about the fact that the Bible's relevant. It's completely relevant, right? Noah was building an ark for 150 years,
Mm.
and everybody and the mama was laughing at him. And then what happened,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
He was willing to be humiliated. He was willing to be jeered at. He was willing to fail
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
order to pursue that vision. So for me, it's about placing the vision ahead of the doubt, placing the vision ahead of the naysayers,
Mm.
and placing the vision ahead of our own self destructive thinking.
Mhm.
Because that vision, when you recognize that that vision is what you were built to bring into the world,
Mm.
especially if it is inspired by God
Mm.
and your motivation is to make him happy,
Yeah.
then every other insecurity melts away.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it
So,
doesn't crop up. I trust me, when up to last night, I was having a moment or
mm.
three. That's why he said, cast your cares. He says, come talk to me about it. Go lay down on my couch.
Mm.
We'll talk about it. I want you to tell me so that I can help you figure it out,
Yeah.
you know? Um, so it is and there are so many other entrepreneurs with similar stories who just decided to keep going anyway, who
Mm.
decided to do the stupid. The Wright brothers, my goodness gracious,
Mm.
they were jumping off roofs trying to figure out the aerodynamic elements of wings so that they can invent the first airplane. And people thought they were Now look what happened, right?
Says it all
So
right. I actually love that phrase. I think I might use it going forward. Just it's a good principle. Just do the stupid. I love it. I think it's fantastic, and I think it just kind of sets up the last question really, really, really well because I think certainly my own journey, and I've been on and off the entrepreneurship road for kind of two and a half, almost 3 years, but full time. When it kind of just hit me and my wife that we kind of had to pursue this from say September last year. So me and my wife have been sort of full time entrepreneurs since September of 2025. But kind of before then, I'll just share a little bit with you before we close. One of the things I struggled with in particular was imposter syndrome is definitely one of them. I also have this kind of niggling feeling as well that even though having let's just say having walked away from corporate life and trying to find my feet in whatever it is that I'm wanting to do or doing now, that I wasn't qualified enough, or I didn't know enough, or I was trying to swim in waters that I clearly wasn't ready for or able to do, and a lot of what I was doing was kind of like learning and failing quite publicly. So that obviously took quite a lot of confidence and almost faith almost to an extent to kind of just say, look, here's what I'm doing now. This is what I used to do. This is what I'm doing now. I'm not part of that world anymore, which even still 3 years later, some people in corporate still don't understand. They still don't get it. It's like, what are you doing? Like, just go and get another job and just shut up. What's
exactly.
wrong with
You're doing
um
the stupid.
I'm doing the stupid and I'm very and
Yeah.
I'm very aware that to some people, what I'm doing looks incredibly stupid. Like, all of this kind of stuff that I'm doing now. And but then I suppose really the whole point I'm trying to make, and this is what I want to ask you to kind of close this off, is that it's taken me almost 3 years to get to a point where I myself, I think now have built a solid enough foundation to finally understand who I am, what my identity is, what my vision is, how I move forward, and finally, most importantly, who or what my brand is and who I'm trying to reach. Right. And for that, it's taken me 3 years, but for some people, it can take longer. And I know that there's a lot of people, and there may be some people that are watching this that maybe have a dream or have a vision or have a goal that they want to achieve. You may be stuck in a dead end job, or you may be, in a particular field already, or you want to advance, or that you are at point A at the moment, but you are dreaming of getting to point B. So I suppose my question to you is, Jen, to kind of finish this off, is that what piece of advice could you give to someone that is at point A at the moment that wants to navigate that gap of all these things that could, basically destroy what it is that they're wanting to achieve and who they could become in the future? What would you say to that person?
Hmm. The ability to achieve any goal starts with understanding who you are. I would have to say that I'm living the most rewarding professional life that I've ever lived.
Mhm,
I enjoy it. I delight in everything that I'm doing. And when I say I delight in it, I mean, oh my gosh, I enjoy
mm,
it.
mm,
The And of course it comes with challenges and hiccups and issues and all the things, but I even enjoy dealing with those aspects. And it's because I'm doing what I am built to do. And I know it's cliche, right? I know the whole concept of doing what you feel like you're built to do um, seems like a pipe dream in comparison to the realities of your life.
mm,
Um, but the only way to get that abundance that Christ died for is to make a decision. Understand who you are. Take the time to really understand who you are
mm,
and what your heart is drawing you to, and then make a decision. And it sounds really simple, right? I make
mm,
decisions every day. But sit back and think about what a decision means. When you make a decision to pursue what you are naturally born for, over the practical, over the wisdoms of the world. Nothing wavers you from it, because that becomes then the lexicon through which you see your life, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And understanding who you are helps you shut out the noise, because most of us don't accomplish our goals because they allow the noise to come in, and they allow that noise to become their truth.
Mhm.
If you are a Christian person, I'm going to admonish you to say the only truth that you should be carrying is God's truth.
Mhm.
And He says that we can do all things through Christ who gives us strength. If that is His truth, and you're being pulled, drawn, troubled in the middle of the night over something that you know you are supposed to be doing,
Mhm.
then you have a decision to make. And once you make that decision, be immovable and trust your Father to figure out the details. Because guess what? The details ain't none of your business anyway. It's
Some
His
of
job
the
to work out.
plans been worked out already, you know. So that's already happened to us. That's why we're in Bulgaria now. Literally what you just said. Same thing happened to us.
Yep.
Where the pull was so strong, and it got to a point where things were just becoming so insurmountable for us in the UK, and we were just like, we need to make that decision. That pull was getting stronger. So I certainly felt it, and the only way we were able to kind of fulfill that vision, to fulfill what it was that God had for us, was by being obedient, basically, just being obedient and saying, "Look, do you know what? I have no idea what this is gonna look like. I don't know how we're gonna feed the kids. I don't know how we're gonna pay our bills. I don't know how this is gonna work. But you know what? I'm just gonna trust you. I'm just gonna trust that you already know the details because you wouldn't have put this vision or this dream in. I wouldn't just say me, but for all of us. It wouldn't exist if there wasn't an end goal to it, you know?
Yeah.
It's almost like, how do I describe it? You won't be pulled on a particular path just to be led off a cliff at the end of it. Obviously, if you're following the wrong, if you're following your own intuitions and maybe the noise, as you put it, then yeah, you're highly likely to make more mistakes and make more stupid decisions. But there's nothing wrong with making stupid decisions as long as you know that you're following the right path or being led by the right master, basically. So I think that principle in and of itself is really really important, and I think that is something that a lot of people can relate to because anybody can have a vision, anybody can have a dream, anybody can have that thing. Maybe not everybody experiences it, but there's always that thing that somebody has that you say keeps you awake at night. You can't stop thinking about it. You just, whatever it is, you just need to kind of get it out there, whether it's music or business or song or it doesn't matter what it is. It's just like it's something that that is just a fundamental part of you that just doesn't need to stay hidden or just stay within you anymore. But like the question I asked, it's almost like, taking that step from having that, it bothering you to actually making that a reality and navigating everything else, the noise, the distractions. A lot of the time, it's other people, it's even your loved ones half the time, that will kind of stop you from doing A, if it's a God given vision, what God wants you to do, or B, what fulfilling your purpose. Because I do genuinely believe that all of us, every single human being on this earth, has a purpose. We have a reason for being here. Even you might not think, my life sucks, or I have no money, or have no home, or I'm whatever. It doesn't stop you from fulfilling a purpose. We are at the end of the day, we're made in the image of God, and God doesn't create anything or anyone by accident. So it's almost like, again, you've said it as well. I'm kind of paraphrasing a little bit, Jenny. It's almost like it's our duty to kind of fulfill that because that way we're making not only making God happy, but also by fulfilling our purpose, it enriches our lives.
It
We're doing
absolutely.
ourselves a disservice by not doing it, you know,
I want
not
to
doing
share
it.
a couple. I want to share a couple other things. Like I
Go
said,
for it.
this is the happiest I've ever been professionally. Even though
Mm,
I spent a lot of time in the other worlds, I quickly became dissatisfied. The money was fantastic. The
mm,
prestige, all things, but I felt myself dying inside because I wasn't doing what
mm,
I was supposed to do.
mm.
And I'm going to be honest and say God literally kicked me out. And I'm humble enough to admit that. All right. You just decided to just throw me out of here, huh?
Oh, you're right.
Um, because his purpose needs to be fulfilled.
Yeah.
And there are many who would end up staying in dissatisfying situations and become bitter and angry. And then there are others who would be unceremoniously removed because that purpose needs to be fulfilled. So rather than allowing yourself to be unceremoniously removed,
Mm,
perhaps honor what you're being called to do, honor it. And the
mm,
truth is the minute I was removed from that circumstance or found myself, I would say, rescued from that circumstance, all of the resources I needed started to come surround me,
mm,
come in my direction.
mm.
So any fears that I might have had about taking the step disappeared because I realized that he was taking care of all of the elements that I needed in order to become or be the builder that he's made me to be.
Yeah.
So if you need to believe, if it, my choices were I'm going to believe God or I'm going to believe God. There are no other choices. Either I'm going to believe him or I'm going to believe him. Because believing myself is an exercise in futility. It gets you so far, doesn't
Mm,
get you to where you need to be. And
yeah.
finally, abundance doesn't necessarily mean extreme wealth. It simply means that you are fulfilled.
Mm,
It could come with wealth or not necessarily, but you're supplied, you're taken care of. And, that should be our pursuit. And
mm.
I pray that that is the pursuit of anybody that's listening today,
Yeah.
that you are
Absolutely.
able to find your abundant place.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that I think now I was going to say more, but I realized that you know what, I could carry on talking about this for a very, very long time because it's a certain passion of mine. It's something that I myself am building my own business on. The helping of people to find their passions, to find their purpose, to bridge that gap from A to B and to help people live more rich and fulfilling lives. And for me, that's really, really important. So thank you so much, Jen, for sharing such amazing insight. I think it would be a good time to kind of end things there. But I just wanted to say thank you so much again for getting up. I know it's still morning time in Trinidad at the moment. It's afternoon in Bulgaria here, but I just want to thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you. I'll leave LinkedIn details for anyone that wants to connect with you and to obviously learn more from your insights and as your businesses grow and as you continue to develop as an entrepreneur. And yeah, I don't have anything more to say really. I'm just in awe. Absolute powerhouse of an entrepreneur is how I describe you. So thank you so much for being such an inspiration and. I've certainly learned a lot from speaking with you, and I'm sure that many people hopefully many people that will watch this will hopefully get the same impression that I've got. So thank you so much for your time.
It was absolutely my honor. Thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. So that concludes episode 2. Thank you again so much to Jen for joining me. That was amazing. I'm lost for words at the insights and the wisdom and everything that Jen had to share. I'm personally I'm excited to be able to join her on her journey and to learn from someone with that level of experience. And that's kind of weird, is just kind of share a final thought of my own. Really, that's why important to foster the idea of having connections and making connections. And you don't know who that knows someone that can help you, that someone that can not just only transform or elevate your business, but also can give you insights and wisdom that you may not have ever thought of or developed by yourself. So I'm grateful, to have met and to befriend someone like Jen. I think having her, as a part of my, kind of like my ecosystem would be obviously only beneficial to not just myself as I grow my own businesses, but also to the businesses that I own with my wife as well. And and it's important to keep people around you that will help you to grow, people with a similar kind of mentality and mindset, because it will only help you at the end of the day. But if anything, one other thing I can kind of share is that, don't be afraid to put yourself out there and just to ask people, do you know someone that could potentially help you with what it is that you need to do? Because you never know, the right person or the right people could just be either a DM or a phone call or a message away. So, I just, the last thing I just want to just leave with you is just, just have courage to do that. The only way you're going to be able to bridge the gap between who you are and who you want to be is by basically fighting that fear of, oh, they might say no, or they may not think I'm good enough, or I've only got like 500 followers on Instagram or whatever. All of that doesn't matter. Willingness and persistence and just just basically saying, look, this is what I want to achieve. I believe that you might know someone or might know people that can help me achieve what it is that I want to achieve. And yeah, some people might say no, and that's okay. Where there might be a no, someone else might say yes. And if there's a maybe, then you might have a bit of kicking to do to kind of kick them over to saying yes, or maybe you even kick them over to saying no. It doesn't matter. Maybe not everyone will be on board with what you want to do, which is what certainly I'm finding out at the moment. But do you know what? At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. So at the end of the day, in situations where, you kind of just send either a blind message or just be bold enough to kind of ask for something. If you don't ask, you don't get. This is something that I tell my kids. This is something that obviously has been told to me as well. But it's true. If you don't ask for something, then the likelihood that the worst that someone can do is say no to what you're asking for. So, be encouraged, be blessed, and don't be afraid or shirking away from what it is that you really want out of life. Do you want to grow your business? Do you want to grow as a person? Do you want? Let's just bring it back to basics. Do you want to make money? Do you want to become a greater person of value? Because everybody does have value. Every single person has value. You may not look like every single person has value, but everybody has value. And the purpose of why I do what I do, why many other people do what they do, is to extract that value that is already there, that people have, and just making it known to the world, making it known so that person's life can become more enriched and that they can become greater in value. It's almost like buying or building a house, for example. Maybe nothing, or maybe run down at the start, but with a little bit of time and investment and cultivation, that asset can grow in value. And that's what we're doing here with people. So that's really the mission. I've kind of gone on a little bit about the life of someone extraordinary, why I've started it, what I want to achieve with the life of someone extraordinary, and how it feeds into my personal brand as a whole. So the Mercurial Creative, we're shifting from, kind of more of a focus on me and my entrepreneurial journey to how stories from my own journey can be built with frameworks that can help you in order to help you to become that person of value. And also as well, we speak to and interview people that can also help with achieving that goal as well. So, I hope with that little explainer that I can kind of demonstrate more as to, what this channel is about, what the life of someone extraordinary is all about, and hopefully give you a reason to not only subscribe, not only to check out every other bit of content that I've made as well, but also as well to kind of be in anticipation for what's to come in the future, not just on this channel, but also what it means for you as well. So I'm really grateful that you've tuned in. I hope you got a lot of value from what Jen had to share, and I'm looking forward to the next episode of The Life of Someone Extraordinary. Bye for now. Don't forget to like the video if you liked it, and subscribe, and tell a friend, share this video with someone. Who do you know in your life that could really, really benefit from everything that we've discussed today? Because I'm sure that you know someone, at least one or two people, that will really, really have this type of content will have a profound impact on. Do you know someone that just needs a lift, that someone that just needs a little bit of encouragement and a little bit of, oh, okay, you know what? If they can do it, so can I. Everything that they're talking about, I felt it, I can feel it. I really want to be that person. So share this video with someone, encourage someone today. And as I said before, do something that maybe you're afraid to do. The worst that anybody can say is no. God bless you guys, and I can't wait to see you soon.